I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. This is Talk of the Bay on K Squid, and often we do science stories related to the ocean because we are the squid, but we also look to the stars. And I'm sure that many squids look up and see this beautiful moon and they want to rise to the surface. So we are here talking with Dean Norris and Andy Krejci. They are both members, and Andy Krejci is the vice president of Dark Sky Santa Cruz. Also with us is Joe Jordan. All of them are keen on educating the public on the beauty of stargazing. So I'm going to ask each of you to tell me a little bit about why we should pay attention to what's up there when so many of us are either asleep or looking at movies at night. This might seem like a really dumb question, but what's still awesome about looking up at the stars? Andy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I've been in astronomy education for a number of years, and I think it is important to have that kind of cosmic perspective to give your human life a little bit of context. Are we just, interacting with each other? No, we happen to be on a planet that's orbiting a star, that's orbiting a galaxy, that's one of, hundreds of billions of galaxies in the universe. Whether that matters to your day-to-day life, maybe not, but I think the context is important.
You mean you want us to feel like insignificant specks of dust?
Well, there's both insignificance in that the universe is so big, but there's significance in that we can understand that the universe is so big and know our place within it.
Fantastic. I will go to you, Dean. What about you? What's awe-inspiring about looking up instead of down?
Well, for me, it's a way to connect to the natural world. I mean, the way I view the stars in the heavens, it's like life here on Earth. We're all made of the same substances and chemical and products, and so we're all really connected. Even though the distance of all the stars and the other planets are very far away, the elements that they're made of unite us all, and that we're all made of those materials. I find that to be very fascinating. I grew up in the space age when I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and so the space age really sparked my fascination with outer space, and I thought it was very cool. And I got interested in astronomy then when I was a teenager. It's been a lifelong pursuit of mine. And as I grew older, I found that I really enjoyed my connection with the night sky and how it also related to my spiritual beliefs as well. So very peaceful too, a good way to center yourself and to find a relaxing, calm place to connect with nature through the stars.
How beautifully said. And Joe Jordan, what about you? What can you say about the value of looking up to the stars at night?
Well, it's just so beautiful, especially if you can actually make out some of the Milky Way, which in some areas not too far from Santa Cruz, you can, especially this time of year. I was going to say before I forget that Dean, who you were just talking to, is actually giving a public presentation for our local chapter of the International Dark Sky Association, or I guess it's called Dark Sky International now. And that'll be at the Branciforte Public Library on Friday, October 17th. It's fairly early in the evening, like 5 p.m. Happens to be Earthquake Day, but this will be some cosmic relief from all those kinds of things. But another thing I want to say about the stars, looking at the stars, the constellations, of course, there's not really much scientific about the interpretation that some people and cultures make on the various shapes in the heavens, but it's they're old friends of mine. I go out at different times of year and I sort of know what stars I ought to see here and there, and which constellations, and of course which planets are coming around too. The name planet comes from the Greek word planeti, meaning wanderer, the planets are these sort of bright lights up there that go their own way independently of the constellations. But anyway, it's all just beautiful and interesting.
Yes, indeed. So on to the Dark Sky mission of the Dark Sky International, and it has its own chapter in Santa Cruz. Andy, what is the goal and the mission of Dark Sky International?
So Dark Sky International is an advocacy organization with advocates and chapters all over the world, including Santa Cruz, obviously. And it was started back in the 80s by two astronomers, really, and they had kind of selfish motivations. They just wanted to be able to see the stars and to investigate the stars, in the case of the professional astronomer. And you can't investigate what you can't see. So this started in Tucson, Arizona, where the organization is still headquartered, but is kind of fanned out throughout the world. And, in the time since this first started as kind of, okay, we want to do better astronomy, so we need to see the stars. More and more data is showing up that we need dark skies for a plethora of reasons. It's just not natural not to have dark skies at night. If you think of this planet with its natural cycles of day and night, that's been going on for billions of years. But we have interrupted that by having artificial light at night. And the problem is getting worse by about 10% a year. And it's harm is being felt, throughout the natural world. Cancer rates in humans, sea turtles is, a big one that, has hit the news. But any life form that you investigate, is there a negative effect about having light pollution? And the answer is inevitably yes. And you talked about, living near the marine environment, and that's something I just learned recently. Is it also has negative effects on the marine environment? So it's a worldwide problem for pretty much all species.
And what is the main driver of the problem? Is it night city lighting? Is it what is causing the most light pollution in our world?
Well, humans, for sure. If you think about what are the natural forms of light at night, there's lightning, there's the aurora, there's some life forms that give off light at night, like fireflies, and species in the ocean that give off light, but not much more than that. So yeah, it's a human-based problem, and it's kind of cultural too, because humans are diurnal creatures. We like light, and we've kind of ruled the world with light. And everybody likes Christmas lights, and now we've got cheap LEDs where you can light up your home, at night with, all sorts of different colors and program them in different ways. But that goes against nature, and we kind of need to wake up to the harm we're doing by putting light pretty much everywhere at night, and I would say almost indiscriminately.
And I'm talking to Dean now. What do you think the biggest impact would be of particular kinds of lights? Is there one fix to this, or is there some solution that's being proposed by Dark Sky International that would make a dent on what you're describing as a problem, not only for our own sleep cycles and other health, but the health of creatures, from ocean creatures all the way to land creatures? So, Dean, what would be the biggest positive impact, and what are you guys focusing the most on of all the things humans light up?
Well, that's a big question, but the way I'd like to first get into that answer is to say, in Germany, just recently, there was research done by 230,000 researchers in Germany that measured the light at night, and they found that the majority of the light was actually from stores and windows, and let's see, the source of light and pollution in the cities was vastly outnumbered by lights from storefronts, signs, and windows. And so people, before they did that research, were thinking that the majority of the light pollution was being caused by street lights. But this study found that 7 to 1, that the street lights were being vastly outnumbered by those other sources of light pollution. So when I learned that, I realized that, well, I felt that there was a lot of actually for correcting the problem, because that meant that those kinds of lights are created by individuals and individual businesses. So rather than relying on solely the government to fix the problem, this is something that people can do in their own home or their businesses or in the larger community.
You said windows. Did you mean like the windows of people's homes?
Yes, the windows in homes, the windows in buildings, office buildings that are often left on with lights on at night, just shining outside. That was a surprising effect that they discovered. And, you know, billboards, business signs out in the front of their businesses. And so those kinds of lights were vastly outnumbering the effect on pollution rather than the street lights. And so there's simple things that people can do to correct the problem. For instance, just shielding a bright light, for one, directs the light where it's intended to be used. And then in addition to shielding, we can change the bulb that's in the fixture to a lower color temperature so that it's not so bright white or bluish white is the kind of light that's really the most harmful to the environment. It's blue-white light, but it appears to our eyes to be very bright and having a lot of glare. And if we reduce that light to a lower, a warmer color, to like the more amber color, and it means in scientific terms below 3,000 Kelvin. But that's an easy thing to determine when you're buying a bulb in the store, like at Home Depot, for instance. If you're buying some bulbs for your outdoor fixtures, you can look on the packaging of the bulb and it'll tell you how many kelvins the light is producing when it's on. And so if you buy a bulb that's 3,000 Kelvin or below that, for instance, in my backyard, I installed 3 lights that are 2,700 Kelvin. So that's more of the amber color, like I was talking about. And that's still sufficient enough light for me to be able to see around my backyard well enough so that it doesn't create a safety hazard, or so I can, you know, when it's on, because normally I just leave that light off. So turning off lights at night, having lights on motion detectors and other control devices so that the light is only on when it's needed. That can greatly help. Pulling the blinds on your buildings, you know, closing the blinds, or if it's drapes you have in your house, keeping those closed so that the light doesn't just shine out into the outside the building, because all these effects contribute to the light pollution in the night sky, which affects the environment. Originally, when I got interested in dark sky, when I joined the international organization over 5 years ago, it was from my astronomy interest that I wanted to see an improvement in the night sky, because light pollution was affecting what I was able to observe. But as I started studying the topic, I realized that the effect on the environment and the effect on human health is so significant that it really dwarfed my desire to have it improve my astronomy.
But so often people start out with something that affects them personally, and they realize that it's a bigger issue than just their own. And it sounds like you moved from that to a bigger concern. And one thing you said earlier, I wanted to delve a little deeper with the other two guests here, which is you posed it as good news that it was up to individual businesses to be able to affect change. It seems like it's inefficient to have to educate individual owners of individual stores, whereas whole governments can say, we're passing a new law. You have to turn off your lights after midnight or whatever, whatever the laws are. Are there governments that are actually effectively regulating light pollution that you know about? And I'll ask Andy and Joe that same question. Andy?
Yeah, so that leads us into what our chapter is working on right now is trying to negotiate with the city of Santa Cruz to adopt a lighting ordinance. The city of Santa Cruz came up with this 2030 general plan, and in it there is language about reducing light pollution. So back when that general plan was developed, and I think that was in the the aughts, the 2000s, I think it was adopted in 2012, with the idea that, we would make positive changes in our community by 2030. And well, here we are, approaching 2030. It's, less than 5 years away. And most of the people in the city know anything about light pollution and didn't follow specific language in the general plan that says, yeah, we need to reduce this. So it's kind of our job to let them know, hey, this is a goal created by the city years ago. Now let's do something about it. So there are other communities that have done so. Our parent organization, Dark Sky International, has a whole program of dark sky places. So this can be parks. There are a lot of national parks. I'm working personally with Pinnacles National Park to become certified as a dark sky park. But there's also dark sky communities. Flagstaff, Arizona is one that started years ago. And so Flagstaff, about the same population as Santa Cruz. It's a little different because it's a little isolated. It's surrounded by forest. But if you look at a satellite photo, you can tell right off the bat that they're wasting less light than we are here in Santa Cruz. It's a lot brighter in Santa Cruz than it is in Flagstaff. And a big concern among the public and also government is safety. And there's this perception that brighter is better. And again, it goes back to our being diurnal creatures. And, something in our DNA is afraid of, saber-toothed tigers, finding us in the cave at night. So the darkest...
Or muggers following us down a dark alleyway.
I think it's in our genes too. So that's a big part of education, is letting people know that brighter is not necessarily safer, especially if you're approaching an ATM at night. And I can give you examples here in Santa Cruz where they have a giant floodlight pointing at you as you approach the ATM. Well, as you approach the ATM, it's blinding your eyes, making your pupils go down really small, so you can't see what's in the dark areas. So is that safer? I would say not necessarily. I think the better choice would be, as Dean is saying, is to shield those lights, point them down so you can see what you're approaching, the whole area around it, instead of shining in your eyes. And that's a key part to this lighting ordinance that we have proposed to the city, and that we're kind of working on that right now with the city of Santa Cruz. And our dream is to make all of Santa Cruz County darker. So we're starting with city of Santa Cruz. We'd like to go to all the jurisdictions, Scotts Valley, Capitola, Watsonville, and the county of Santa Cruz to adopt lighting ordinances as well.
It seems like there's a benefit too that you maybe haven't mentioned, which is the reduction of carbon in the atmosphere from all that energy that lights, burn. So that would be a side benefit of everything. I know that Joe Jordan often calls me and asks if because I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains, if it's clear up here so they can drive here, wouldn't it be nice to just go out in your backyard and look up at the stars? I remember being a child visiting my grandparents in LA, and there was there was not only no stars at night because of the pollution, not only light pollution, which was rampant, but pollution from smog. We had a double whammy where it was pretty much daylight at night. It was all lit up so much that you could walk around and see everything. That's changed because of federal laws, the Clean Air Act being one. So are you also hopeful that maybe on a national level, maybe not this year, but in a couple of years, maybe there's going to be momentum for the EPA to regulate light pollution?
Well, certainly awareness is growing, and it's becoming less of a niche issue and a much larger issue that is, gaining traction in the press and wherever. But yeah, governments will help, but it also comes down to personal responsibility, as does everything. So LEDs came out, and I think Santa Cruz converted their streetlights to LEDs in 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. And LEDs are great. They're efficient, but we rely on the technology to be efficient. And in some of my talks, I talk about this guy, William Stanley Jevons, who was an economist in 19th century England. And he has this paradox named after him, Jevons paradox. So back in his time, they were making improvements to the coal burning engine, and everybody, was very excited. It's like, oh, this means we'll use less coal. Well, the opposite was true. You make something more efficient, and you just tend to waste it. And it's part of human behavior, and we need to kind of control that. So, an example would be, oh, okay, you buy a Prius, you buy an electric car, you're not buying as much gas, you save some money, and then you buy a plane ticket to go to Europe, or you take longer vacations because you can drive further. And I see it with LED lights. Yes, they're extremely energy efficient, but yeah, just look what's happened. I mean, the car dealership down the street where I bought my last 3 cars, I think, used to turn their lights off at 10 o'clock at night. They finally converted them to LED, put more lights in, and they're on all night now.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
is that I don't
It
know.
reminds me of the conversation around solar energy, although, technically you could use a lot of that without feeling like you're wasting it because it's pretty much inexhaustible. So, but it is a paradox because then maybe you could use more gasoline just because it would keep you at eye level if you added more solar. So it was a conversation I had with Bill McKibben a couple of weeks ago. I said, isn't it the total use of energy writ large of fossil fuels, not just proportional amount? So there's a lot more to be done, but it sounds like you're well on your way. I want to leave you with some final thoughts. If you would like to reiterate anything you said earlier, Dean, Joe, would you like to say anything more about the value of this endeavor for both humans and animals?
Yeah, I'll just jump in to say that our local organization has had some little victories. For instance, there was a business out here, well, still is out here on the far west side of town, but they had these ridiculous, egregious, obnoxious, bright lights that they, in the name of so-called security, that they would just leave on all night, every night, and the light was splattering out all across, for the big fractional mile, all the way across Natural Bridges State Park. And there's ecosystems and, creatures, birds, fish, turtles, all kinds of things that get adversely affected, not to mention people, by the way. All kinds of studies showing that lighting at the wrong time at night is bad for people's psyches, not just because we're sad we can't see the stars like we used to. But there is this thing, this talk that's happening that we're putting on October 17th, Friday, at the Branson 40 Public Library, which is on Galt Street, kind of over on the east side, not far from the Rio Theater, And it is important to note, I guess, that they have some system where you're supposed to register sign up in advance on their website or whatever. And not all that many seats available, but go ahead and get on that if you're interested. And we'd love to see lots of folks and could talk at more length with any and all about their interests and concerns and questions. And hopefully that'll be a great occasion. And thanks so much, Rachel, for having us on this show. And good job, you guys, Andy and Dean.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Dean, you can have the final word if you like.
Well, I'll just say that light pollution is something everybody can reduce, in their own home or at their business. It's really as simple as installing a shield, installing the shield and changing the bulb to a lower color so that it's not overly bright into the blue-white frequency. And it is a doable thing. And with that, I think there's a lot of hope. Instead of, feeling like, this is a hopeless problem and it's so overwhelming, it's really not. If everyone takes some responsibility in this and starts being proactive about it, we can really enact a great change in our environment, which will help our health and our wildlife. And thank you, Rachel, for having us on.
Thank you so much for being here. These are the members of Dark Sky International, the Santa Cruz chapter. That is Andy Krejci, Dean Norris, and Joe Jordan. Thank you all for being here on Talk of the Bay. I appreciate your time.
Oh, we can all use the dark skies to see a couple of meteor showers coming up this month, by the way. Middle of October is the Orionids. They appear to fan out from the constellation Orion, and they come from Halley's Comet, actually, those particular meteor bits.
All right. With that thought, we'll trail out there with Joe Jordan and Andy Krejci and Dean Norris. Thank you all for being here.